The mahogany desk. A man in a yellow rain slicker held a monkey wrench over Elias's head on a rooftop 30 feet above concrete. Below them, in a kitchen Elias hadn't yet reached, his mother was about to drink poison from a floral teacup. And in a locked attic, a leather-bound journal burned with all the lies of his life. 13 hours earlier, the rain had just begun to fall. Elias kneeled on the dusty wooden floorboards of his father's attic, surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled office and books. The yellow box cutter felt light in his hand as he sliced through layers of brown packing tape. Each movement released a small cloud of dust particles that caught the single beam of light filtering through the attic's circular window. The rain drummed overhead, steady and insistent, while downstairs the empty house held its breath. He pulled open another crate, revealing a small mahogany writing desk. The wood was dark and polished, smelling of cedar. He ran his hand over the surface, feeling the grain beneath his fingers. His father had always loved this desk. Arthur had kept it in his office throughout Elias's childhood, a piece of furniture that seemed to hold some special significance he'd never explained. Elias tugged at the bottom drawer. It stuck. He yanked harder, and the whole desk wobbled. That's when he noticed something odd. The internal floor of the drawer was 3 inches higher than the frame should allow. He inserted the tip of the box cutter into a narrow seam at the back of the drawer and pried upward. A thin false bottom popped loose with a sharp crack that echoed through the attic. Beneath it lay a leather-bound journal, dark green with a gold A embossed on the cover. Next to it was a stack of Polaroid photographs held by a thick red rubber band. His hands trembled as he reached for the journal. The first page bore his father's handwriting, sharp, slanted, unmistakable. The date read, October 14th, 1994. His devoted father, his perfect childhood. All of it arranged like pieces on a chessboard. The pounding continued for another moment, then stopped. Elias looked toward the small attic window and made his decision. He kicked out the window frame with both boots. Glass shards sprayed into the rain and fell toward the sodden yard below. The wind immediately whipped into the attic, carrying the smell of wet earth and distant thunder. He climbed out onto the steep, wet shingles of the roof, his fingers gripping the edge of the window frame. Uncle Marcus emerged from the broken window almost immediately. He had discarded the black surgical mask. His face was twisted in a grimace. In his right hand, he carried a heavy monkey wrench. "Give me the journal," Marcus said. His voice was different now, stripped of the false civility. It was the voice of someone who had been waiting a long time to drop the pretense. Elias didn't respond. He turned and scrambled up the steep slope of the roof toward the ridge line. Marcus lunged. His foot slipped on the mossy shingles. He swung the wrench, and Elias felt the metal whistle past his shoulder, close enough that he heard it cut the air. The wrench hit the roof with a heavy clang that seemed to echo across the entire neighborhood. Elias grabbed Marcus's arm, twisting it. They grappled on the edge of the roof, rain streaming down their faces, the driveway 30 feet below slick with oil and rain. Marcus's leather glove was slippery against Elias's skin. They were like two wrestlers locked in a dance that could only end with one of them falling. Marcus headbutted Elias. Stars exploded in Elias's vision. He felt the journal sliding out of his waistband and caught it with one hand while driving his knee into Marcus's shin. Marcus howled and released his grip. Elias shoved him away with all his remaining strength. Marcus slid down the slope, his fingers clawing at the gutter. The gutter groaned and bent under his weight, but held. Elias leaped from the roof onto the thick branch of an old oak tree nearby, the jar of impact running through his shoulders, and scrambled down the trunk to the wet grass below. He ran. By afternoon, Elias stood across the street from a bright blue townhouse. He held the Polaroid photograph up to the light, matching it against the shutters and the oak tree in the front yard. It was a perfect match. This was the house from the photo. The other house. The life his father had hidden. He looked at the photograph again and studied the blonde woman standing beside Arthur. He looked at the baby. He looked at his own wrist, clean and unmarked. Then he looked at the second photograph, the one showing a young man walking out of the blue house. The front door opened. A young man stepped out wearing a varsity jacket with Julianne stitched on the chest. He was tall, lean, with Elias's exact height and posture. His face was almost identical to Elias's own, except for his eyes, which were green like the blonde woman's. Julian reached for his car keys in his pocket. He rolled up his left sleeve to check the fitness tracker on his wrist. There it was, exactly as it had been in the baby photograph. A small, wine-colored crescent moon birthmark. Elias opened the journal and found the page dated 2010. The handwriting was hurried, filled with pride and something darker. Julian is the son I actually wanted. Elias is just the insurance policy. If Martha ever leaves, I take Julian and disappear. Marcus has the offshore accounts ready. A text message buzzed on Elias's phone. From Mom. Where are you? Uncle Marcus said you were acting erratic at the house. Come home now. The message had a lock screen photo of Elias and his father fishing together, both of them smiling at the camera. Both of them pretending. Elias didn't respond. Instead, he watched Julian's silver sedan pull away from the curb and drive into the afternoon traffic. The parking garage was dimly lit only by the sickly yellow glow of overhead sodium lights. Mr. Sterling, his father's old lawyer, leaned against a concrete pillar and smoked a thin cigar. He wore a gray wool coat despite the humidity. When Elias approached him with the green journal held plainly in his hands, Sterling barely glanced up. Your father wasn't just a bigamist, kid, Sterling said, blowing a cloud of gray smoke toward the ceiling. He was a choreographer. He staged the textile merger failure to bankrupt your mother's family. He stole her inheritance to fund Julian's life. Elias grabbed Sterling by the lapels. The cigar fell to the ground, sparks scattering across the concrete. Elias shook him, and Sterling's head snapped back. Sterling drew a folder from his briefcase with trembling hands and gave it to Elias. Inside were bank statements showing millions transferred from Martha's trust to an account named JB Enterprises. Each page bore a large red stamp. Transfer approved. A car engine revved on the level above them. Elias heard tires screeching around a corner. A black SUV with tinted windows descended the spiral ramp toward their level, the engine whining with acceleration. Go, Sterling said, pointing toward a service stairwell. They know you have the journal. Elias ran. The fire extinguisher hung on the wall beside a concrete pillar. Elias yanked it down just as the first thug emerged from the black SUV. The man wore tactical gear and carried a telescopic baton that extended with a sharp snap. The thug swung the baton. The window of a red Honda exploded into glittering fragments, the glass spreading like a brief constellation before falling to the concrete. Elias was already moving, already pulling the fire extinguisher's pin. He blasted the white chemical foam directly into the thug's face. The man stumbled back, blinded and gasping, clawing at his eyes. Elias swung the heavy metal extinguisher like a club. It connected with the second thug's ribs, with a sound like a coughing engine. The man crashed into a concrete wall and slid down, wheezing. Elias threw the empty extinguisher aside. A white Jeep was parked 2 rows over with keys left in the ignition. Sterling's gift, a final act of assistance. Elias slammed it into reverse. The tires screamed as he backed away from the advancing SUV, the vehicle rocking with the violent deceleration. He shot up the exit ramp and didn't slow down until he reached the tree-lined park on the edge of the city. The wooden bench was damp with rain. Elias sat on it as the sun moved toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty park. His knuckles were bruised and bleeding. He opened the journal to the very last page, dated 2 days before his father's fatal car accident. The handwriting was shaky, written as if in a moving vehicle. Elias's eyes moved across the words, each one a separate nail in a coffin he hadn't known existed. Martha is getting too close to the offshore trail. I've started putting the digitalis in her nightly tea. Marcus says it will look like her heart finally gave out from the stress. Once she's gone, Elias will be sent to the academy, and I can finally live with Julian as a free man. Elias pulled out his phone. 6 missed calls from Mom. 6 calls in the last hour. She was home. She was drinking the tea. A black SUV pulled up to the park entrance. Marcus stepped out, looking disheveled, his face bruised from the rooftop encounter. He wasn't hiding anymore. He had a handgun tucked into his waistband. Marcus walked slowly toward Elias, his shoes clicking on the stone bridge that crossed the creek. Elias was trapped. The steep drop into the rocky ravine behind him, Marcus ahead with the gun. Marcus smiled. It was a sad, twisted expression. He pulled a small digital recorder from his pocket and pressed play. Arthur's voice came through the speaker, desperate and sobbing. Marcus, I can't do it. Martha, I can't kill her. Cancel the digitalis. I'm coming home to confess everything. Your father got soft, Elias, Marcus said. He pointed the gun at Elias's chest. His car accident was me ensuring the plan stayed on track. I'm Julian's real guardian now, and your mother's inheritance is mine to manage. Elias looked at the journal in his hand. Every piece of his life suddenly arranged itself into a horrible clarity. His childhood, his father's gentle smile at dinner, the way Arthur had always known exactly what to say to make everything seem normal. All of it was choreography, and Elias had been dancing to a script written by someone else. But not for long. Elias feinted left, then lunged directly at Marcus. The gunshot was deafening, a crack that echoed off the stone bridge and seemed to split the world into before and after. The bullet grazed Elias's ear, burning like fire. Elias felt blood trickling down his neck. He tackled Marcus, driving him into the stone railing. They crashed together, and for a moment they teetered on the edge, suspended above the dark water rushing below. Elias bit Marcus's hand. Marcus screamed and released his grip. Elias kicked the gun over the edge of the bridge. It vanished into the water with a distant splash. Elias climbed onto the railing. He jumped. He didn't hit the water. A passing garbage truck was driving on the road underneath the bridge, piled high with trash bags. Elias landed on the metal heap with a sound like thunder, his body crashing through the bags, garbage exploding into the air around him. He lay there for a moment, gasping, then scrambled to his feet. The truck driver didn't stop. Elias jumped down into the street and started running. The family kitchen was bathed in the golden light of late afternoon when Elias burst through the back door. His mother sat at the kitchen table, a steaming floral teacup inches from her lips. She looked up, startled, her hand halfway to her mouth. Elias crossed the distance in 3 strides. He knocked the cup out of her hand. It shattered on the tiles, tea spreading across the floor like spilled blood. Martha's sharp gasp hung in the air. Elias slammed the green journal onto the table and opened it to the page about the digitalis. Martha's hands began to shake as she read. Her face turned pale, almost white, and her hand moved up to cover her mouth. Marcus walked in through the front door. His clothes were wet and torn. When he saw the broken cup and the journal, he knew. His hand moved toward his jacket, reaching for a backup knife. Elias held up his phone. The screen showed a live stream with 1.2K viewers. He had been recording since the bridge. Marcus's confession was live on the internet, broadcast to thousands of strangers. Blue and red light flooded the kitchen. Police sirens wailed outside. Officers were already climbing the front steps, their shadows moving across the windows. Marcus looked from Elias to the phone to the police gathering outside. His hand fell away from his jacket. His face went slack. 1 week later, Elias stood by his father's grave in the cemetery. The morning was clear and quiet, just birdsong and the distant sound of traffic. He held a Zippo lighter to the corner of the green journal. The pages curled and blackened, the lies turning to ash and smoke. As the journal burned, a small photograph fell out of the back lining. It was a DNA test result from 1996. The text was printed in cold, clinical letters. Probability of paternity for subject, Elias, 0.0%. Actual father, Marcus. Elias stared at the paper. He realized that Julian was Arthur's only biological son. And Elias was the secret betrayal of Marcus. His devoted father, Arthur, had known the truth all along and raised him anyway. He dropped the DNA report into the small fire. The paper caught, the edges curling and browning, the scientific notation disappearing into flame. Elias turned away from the grave. His mother was waiting in a car at the cemetery's edge, engine running, watching him. He walked toward her across the grass, his footsteps leaving brief depressions in the damp earth that would fill with rain and disappear within hours. He didn't look back at the grave. The black smoke rose against a clear blue sky until the wind scattered it into nothing.